My best friend is gonna be a dad in the same time than me and I hate it. Edit, I'll put this edit in the beginning so that I'm sure you'll read it. Reading through the comments here really helped me to get back to reality. I'm going to have a kid FFS. One of the best advice I've read here was that I do not have a do-over on this one. This is my one and only time that I'm going to have a first kid and I'm totally ruining my experience with those thoughts. I'll speak to my therapist for sure, but you guys have already helped me a lot. Thanks. I feel like a terrible person for feeling that way. I hate everything about and it makes me a very bad friend. Here is some context. My friend and I always had the same interests in many things. He also always had a financial situation better than mine, and loves to have nice things. This creates situations where whenever I have something, he has the better one. Like, for example, I just bought a good computer, a couple months later he shows up with a better one. A nice great camera with a nice lens? He'll get the newer more advanced one. Anything I'll have he'll have it too but just better. I don't want to believe he does it on purpose, we just have the same interests and he has more money so it does just make sense. Anyway, this became a running joke between my wife and I. For a long time, I was having a successful relationship with her, and he was struggling to keep a girlfriend. So when he finally found the one, 10 months ago, we joked about it because she was a single mom with had a 5-year-old daughter. So we joked that okay, he had to one-up you on this as well, you're married to me so he had to find someone that would push him to the next step immediately. And so that was the joke for everything, and it was just a joke. When we decided to try for a baby, we joked about it too, you'll see that when I'll be pregnant he'll show up with twins. Well, you read the title. When I knew I was going to be a dad, I was very excited and I told him the news. I was feeling great about it, I was thinking this would be an amazing moment. Him and his girlfriend asked question, she gave us advices, they were great. And at some point, well, he or she is going to have a friend I guess. And now I hate myself for the following, I was crushed inside. It was no longer a special announcement, it became another thing we'd have in common. I stayed polite and played along but I was not happy at all about it. They didn't plan to do it. They didn't do it just because we wanted one. It just happened. And yet I have this feeling that it's exactly what happened. He went in his 30s with no stable relationship, met someone just to move in with her kid 3 months later, then have a kid with her not even a year into their relationship. I hate every single word that I wrote in this post. Since he announced the news to me, I don't want to speak about it at all with him, I barely want to talk to him, and I'm just focusing on my wife and my future kid. I put all my energy into her. Just I don't have anyone to share my joy with now, and it's my fault. Now, he comes up to me telling me everything he plans, the shopping he's gonna do for the baby, the doctor's appointments, and I don't want to tell what I'm doing or what we're planning because that's gonna be something he'll compare and comment about. Just yesterday he told me that it looked like I didn't care about the first ultrasound appointment just because I said that I cared more about knowing that the baby is okay than seeing the pictures, because I don't think I'll be able to understand what I'll be seeing anyway. I took it very wrong and blocked him. Let me analyze the story for you. This story is a raw and layered reflection on the nature of envy, identity, and the fragile boundaries of male friendship when shaped by unspoken competition. At its surface, it appears to be about a man who feels eclipsed when his best friend announces that he too is going to become a father at the same time. But beneath that, the narrative exposes how deeply entangled the narrator's sense of self has become with the presence of his friend, someone who has consistently mirrored his milestones but with apparent superiority, thanks to financial privilege or timing. Over the years, what may have started as playful rivalry or harmless comparison has evolved into something corrosive. The narrator has internalized a narrative in which he is always one step behind, and this mindset distorts even the most intimate and life-changing experiences, such as becoming a parent. The emotional rupture happens not because the friend is also having a child, but because this new life event, something deeply personal and long anticipated, gets folded into a familiar dynamic of feeling lesser than. His joy is no longer his own, it becomes just another shared checkpoint, and this shatters the uniqueness he hoped to find in the experience. This moment is also telling in how it reveals unprocessed grief over years of comparison, perhaps a friendship that's been subtly competitive rather than mutually supportive. The friend's behavior, while not overtly malicious, comes off as tone-deaf or self-centered, adding to the narrator's feeling of isolation. The narrator's emotional response is complex. He feels guilt for his resentment, shame for not being happy for someone he cares about, and confusion over how something so good could feel so tainted. He retreats into silence and into the safety of his own immediate family, realizing that he's not only grieving the loss of emotional exclusivity, but also questioning the emotional safety of the friendship itself. Ultimately, this story becomes a meditation on how unresolved insecurities can manifest in moments of joy, and how essential it is to confront those feelings, not to condemn oneself, but to protect the authenticity of one's own life journey. It's a reminder that comparison is not just the thief of joy, it can be the thief of meaning if left unchallenged. I spent my 20s raising my husband, and I don't care about fixing our marriage anymore. Essentially what the title says, I met my husband when I was 19 and he was 25, and I spent the last 9 years raising him. My husband is a genuinely good person with a kind heart, everyone loves him. But, his parents babied him and his brother their entire lives, and he still uses the excuse of a relationship that ended over 11 years ago as his reasoning for being incapable of being an equal partner and functional adult. He said most of this relationship was miserable, which shows me he will stay in an unhappy situation to avoid change, which is our situation right now. For a majority of our relationship, I contributed the bulk of the finances, housework, errands, cooking, vet appointments, car maintenance, gifts for family and friends on both sides, etc. Even when I was incredibly sick, I continued this at any time he contributed his fair share, not financially, that has always been me. He was applauded and told he was taking such great care of me. I eventually got better, right before COVID happened, and I could still see a future ahead of us. We truly are best friends, so we actually had a blast during lockdown and used the time to reconnect. Things were still unequal, but they were good nonetheless. Then, he admitted to me that his real bedroom preferences are the opposite of what he led me to believe, rendering us basically sexually incompatible after being together over 5 years at that point. I tried for a while to force it, but sex became another unsatisfying chore for me, another thing I had to give up to cater to him. It stripped me of my femininity, and placed me even further as the only dominant partner in our relationship, in the bedroom and out. This is something I had explicitly said I didn't want from the very beginning, but of course his needs always came before mine, as did everyone else's. There were multiple situations where he showed me with no uncertainty that to him, the opinions and feelings of everyone else always came above mine, even if it was a stranger. If I wanted help, I had to write lists, reminders, and give instructions. If someone else needed or wanted something, suddenly he is capable of anything without being asked twice, further showing me that I was the lowest priority on his list. After a situation where he lied to me for no reason and neglected me during a pivotal moment, I finally pushed him away in my mind. He became a best friend and a roommate. I was determined to figure out how to leave. I moved us back to his hometown, to be close to his friends and family, as he has always insisted that he wouldn't be able to function in life without me. At that point we had lived in a city for 5 years, where he never once made an attempt to make friends or create a social life for himself. He became extremely codependent and I began feeling suffocated. It further infantilized him in my mind. I tried to see if things would get better after the move, but they didn't. I tried talking about all of these issues with him, but he would shut down and sulk like a punished child, and I would end up apologizing and placating him. He continued to let his parents believe I would change my mind about having children, despite me always being honest with them, and me telling him I would never want them on our second date. I was tired of them insisting I would change my mind, so I got sterilized this year as a gift to myself. Since the surgery, his mother has been cold to me and acting like I betrayed her, when I have always been honest about it. We had an amazing relationship before this, and I sort of blame him for lying to her all of these years. Taking care of him financially ruined me, as he was never willing to look for a better job until his parents wanted him to, and our lifestyle is not exactly frugal. I finally got my financial shit together, and was 1 foot out the door when his father died suddenly. I didn't feel like I could leave his family at this time, as they don't do well during a crisis, and my whole life has basically been a non-stop crisis situation, so I am able to be calm and take care of things during those moments. He started making a lot of backhanded and passive-aggressive comments about our lack of a sex life, and I finally snapped. I laid everything out for him, and explained that I've been wanting to leave for 3 years, that I'm tired of being a parent to a grown man, that I tried to fix things, and have given what should have been the most carefree decade of my life to him so he could continue living on easy mode like he has been his entire life. Now suddenly, he is a completely new person and has been love-bombing me, but needs constant reassurance and acknowledgement every time he does something. It doesn't feel genuine, it just feels like a performance to keep me from leaving. He always said he recognized these things in himself and promised he would change, but he never did until I stopped being intimate with him. No matter what I do, I lose. I'm not close with my family, and most of my friends in the city are his lifelong friends, so I lose my support system. I lose my car, my living situation, one of my dogs, a ton of the things I busted my ass to purchase. I grew up extremely poor, so having my creature comforts is important to me. I have to start over in so many ways, and he gets to continue being taken care of, as his family is well off and always supports him. I get to pay off the debt he put me in, and deal with the scrutiny of all of our friends and family, who somehow view me as the fuck up, because I never finished college and have always been the black sheep of the family. I'm scared, I'm exhausted, and I feel this wound has festered too long to be healed. I don't see a future where we have a sex life, a happy and balanced partnership, or where there is not resentment in my heart. I love him, and I want him to start over as the new man he can be, without that person seeing the worst side of him. I don't want him living life feeling that he has something to prove. I just want to be alone, the only time in my life I have felt truly cared for, when I was doing it myself. I just want happiness for both of us, even if it's painful in the short term, but I hate to see him hurting, even if it means I am suffering to keep him comfortable. Sorry this was so long, but I have had to keep all of this inside for so long, I just needed to vent. I still don't know what I'm going to do, but the right answer feels obvious. I just have to take the leap, for both of us. Honestly, sometimes I wish I would have just died when I was sick. It would have been easier than this. Let me analyze this story for you. This story is a harrowing, emotionally complex portrait of a woman whose 20s were consumed by emotional labor, financial strain, and the burden of raising a partner who never truly grew up. It is a study in chronic self-sacrifice and the slow erosion of identity that occurs when one partner continuously takes on the role of the caregiver, protector, and provider, while the other remains passive, infantilized, and emotionally unavailable. The narrator's journey is marked by a deeply ingrained pattern of caretaking rooted both in her partner's learned helplessness and her own crisis-hardened resilience. She entered the relationship young, at 19, still forming her adult self, and ended up parenting a man 6 years older who clung to childhood excuses and deflected responsibility for his stagnation. Her partner's reliance on her became total, financially, emotionally, socially, and even sexually, leaving her depleted and resentful. What's especially tragic is the disconnect between perception and reality. Her husband is seen as a good guy by the outside world, praised for the most minimal efforts, while she has carried the invisible weight of keeping everything together. Her experience speaks to how patriarchal conditioning often rewards men for basic functioning while punishing women for having limits. Every act of her independence, whether stating her sexual boundaries, refusing motherhood, or managing finances, is treated as betrayal, not autonomy. The mismatch between his public persona and his private failures further isolates her, leaving her without a support system and emotionally gaslit by the double standard. Even the people closest to them, including his family and mutual friends, have been swayed by a narrative that minimizes her suffering and magnifies his. The story also explores the devastating consequences of emotional neglect. Her desires, voice, and even her femininity were slowly stripped away as she molded herself around his needs. His recent efforts at change, sparked not by understanding or empathy, but seemingly by the threat of losing her, ring hollow, performative rather than transformative. They reveal a desperate man trying to maintain comfort, not a partner ready to confront his own dysfunction. Love bombing, requests for validation, and last-minute heroics fail to undo years of imbalance. For her, healing means escape, even if it requires starting over with nothing. Her reflections show a mature understanding of love. She does not wish him harm and even hopes he grows into someone better, but that growth, she realizes, must happen without her. Ultimately, this story is a deeply painful but empowering realization that sometimes, survival requires leaving behind the person you've loved the most, because staying means continuing to abandon yourself. It is not a tale of cruelty or betrayal, but of quiet endurance, invisible labor, and the moral courage it takes to walk away, not out of hate, but in pursuit of a life where one's existence is no longer a performance of worthiness. I'm a 45-year-old man, still in love with the man I left 2 decades ago. A warning. I'm gonna call the man I can't get over Tyler. It's a fake name, but I want to respect his privacy. It was 2001, I was 21 and at NYU studying to be an urban planner. I'm from Michigan originally and was at New York on scholarship. I had just broken up with my girlfriend a year ago, and had decided that I could be gay. Turns out I'm bi, but being a kid raised religious in the Midwest, I wasn't really sure what that was. But either way I started going, alone, to a couple gay bars. One night, fall semester of my junior year, not too long after September 11th actually, I met Tyler at a bar. I had never seen a man like him before. I guess you could say he was a twink, and he was dressed like one, and had makeup on. We talked and he coaxed me into dancing, and with some liquid courage I kissed him. It was the first time I had ever kissed another man. And I loved it. We made out at the bar and made plans to see each other again soon. We had our first date a few days later. Now I've always been a sort of man's man, I guess you could say, and what was so nice about Tyler is that he knew that right away I could tell, and he played into it. Letting me be the lead in a lot of things, paying for things, cooking him dinner. I did at the time and still do go to the gym, and he would always talk about my muscles. I'm 6 foot and Tyler, although I don't remember his exact height, was quite a bit shorter than me, and would always tell me how he loved how I towered over him. He also made my first time having sex with a man amazing too. In a word, he was into me more than anyone else had been before. And I think maybe after too. That brings me to where things fell apart. By the end of my senior year, I knew I needed to make a decision with us. We had been dating almost 2 years. And my parents still didn't know. He had been telling me I should tell them, but telling them would mean a lot of things, and I didn't want to unless I was going to be with him long term. I think he knew this on some level. Eventually, I decided I couldn't disappoint my whole family. I knew that my mom would be sad, but come around, but my dad would be pissed and my grandparents would probably disown me. I told Tyler that I just didn't think this was right. I'd lost feelings, a lie at the time I didn't know was a lie. I think I had convinced myself of this at the time to make it easier on me, but I still had feelings, and that since I'd be moving for work I didn't want to make him come with me and we should break up. He called my bluff and said that he would move with me. All I had to do was ask, and I had to double down on the other things. I think deep down he knew the real reason why the way he acted when we broke up was way too passive, and not like him at all. I appreciate him doing that if that's the case. We ended on good terms. After a few more times seeing each other to exchange things, and a goodbye dinner we had together right before I moved away, I never saw him again. The breakup was brutal. It took me so long to get over him, but moving and getting a good paying, high work job helped and I put it out of my mind. I dated, but nothing ever felt right. I could never really find the right person and I'd always lose interest. Don't get me wrong, I want to find someone. But I just don't seem to be able. I want to be in love. I want to take care of someone and make them feel special. There just doesn't seem to be anyone right for me, or the ones that aren't into me. I've had longer relationships, a few years, but nothing ever feels right. About a year ago, as I was moving into my new house, first big house I've ever had, personal office and everything, I've always lived below my means until my debts were paid, I picked up some boxes I was keeping at my parents' house. Inside one was an envelope filled with some pictures of me and Tyler. There were only 13 in all, but they were the ones I couldn't bring myself to throw out. Everything else he had given me I tossed eventually. It broke me. Since that day a year ago, there hasn't been a single day that goes by where I don't think about him. I see him in dreams, I cry every night at home. I don't think I ever got over that breakup. I just stopped thinking about it. I never healed. I never stopped loving him. I made the next mistake when I got on Facebook and looked him up back in January. This would be the part in the story where he's single or divorced, but this is the real world. He's married to a man, a big guy like me. LOL, he has a type I guess, and he looks very happy. He went to school for early childhood education and it looks like he's a preschool/kindergarten teacher, still on the East Coast. I will never, ever contact him. I know I broke his heart as well as my own. And I never want to mess up what he has now. He and his husband look so happy. I just wish it was me. But then he wouldn't have this job he seems to love, he would have followed me. Also, it worked out for the best. I'm happy for him. I'm happy I got to have him even for a little bit. I wasn't who he was supposed to be with, but I think he was who I was supposed to be with. No one has ever loved me like he did. No one has ever treated me so, and made me feel so special and safe and loved. No one before and no one since. Those were the best years of my life and might never find them again. I'm in therapy now and it's helping, but I still miss him. So much. So I guess this is a lesson for the youngins out there. If you love someone, don't let anyone, not your parents, not your grandparents, your friends, your family, your coworkers, strangers, no one dictate whether or not you're gonna be with them. You might be giving up so much more than you know. Thanks for listening, guys. Let me analyze this story for you. This story is a raw, poignant confession of long-endured regret, heartbreak, and the enduring power of a love lost to fear and societal pressure. It is a deeply emotional reflection from a man in midlife, still haunted by the quiet, devastating consequences of a decision he made 2 decades ago, not out of malice, but out of fear, self-preservation, and cultural conditioning. At its core, the narrative captures a love that bloomed against the odds, only to be suffocated by the weight of internalized shame and familial expectation. The relationship between the narrator and Tyler was not just romantic, it was formative. Tyler was his first real experience of love, affection, sexual authenticity, and emotional intimacy with another man. The warmth and safety Tyler offered, coupled with the narrator's masculine protector role, created a dynamic where both partners felt seen and valued in ways they hadn't before. It was, as the narrator describes, the most deeply cherished love of his life. The tragedy lies not in betrayal, but in surrendering to silence. The narrator's choice to walk away was not due to a lack of love, but because he could not bear to disappoint his family or face the fallout of coming out in a conservative, religious environment. The emotional burden of that decision, while at the time cloaked in denial and rationalization, has never left him. What makes this story especially moving is how he describes the aftermath. He built a life of stability, success, and respectability, yet the emotional fulfillment that once lit up his world was never truly replaced. Relationships came and went, but none touched the emotional and spiritual depth of what he had with Tyler. His longing is not romantic idealization, it's the aching realization that no one else has ever made him feel as safe, desired, and whole. The rediscovery of their photographs acts as a narrative catalyst, forcing him to confront what he never properly mourned, not just the end of a relationship, but the version of himself that never got to fully live, love, and be seen without shame. Seeing Tyler happy and fulfilled without him is bittersweet, not because he wishes him harm, but because it underscores the finality of what's been lost. There is grace in the narrator's acceptance. He does not intend to reach out or disrupt Tyler's life, but his enduring love adds a solemn depth to the narrative. Sometimes love stories don't end because of incompatibility or betrayal, but because fear wins. Ultimately, this story is a warning, yes, but more than that, it is a testament to how deeply our early loves can shape us and how the consequences of denying ourselves the truth can echo across decades. It's a plea to choose authenticity over approval, love over fear, and to recognize that sometimes the real heartbreak is not in being left, but in leaving, and living with the weight of what could have been. Found out who my real dad was over 1 year ago and I'm still angry about it. Hi, my 23F, mother, 61F, hid my father from me my whole life. I never met him at all. I was the youngest of 4 kids, 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. They all knew their dads. My 2 brothers have the same father, then my sister had a different dad, so basically all of us are half-siblings. Only my 2 older brothers are fully related. So, I was given up to my grandma when I was born and my mom got me back at 8 years old. I never knew my dad. You can check my past posts, but my mom and I don't get along. I always asked her who he was because Father's Day was always ignored to me since I never had any father until my best friend's dad basically was my dad. One time when I was 9? 10? She gave me a book about traveling to meet a dad, like a childhood book. So I was so excited, then she never brought it up again. When I was 12 years old she told me his name was her fake name obviously, and so I hunted for a decade. Anywhere on social media mostly. He didn't exist anywhere. Fast forward to winter 2023, early December. My cousin is in prison for fighting on multiple records or something like that. Well, he opened the can of worms cause I cried saying I was pregnant and wished my daughter could have a blood-related grandpa. Which he told me he knew my real dad and my aunts did too. My real dad is named Joe, fake name, and he died in 2014, but I was a result of an affair on his side, plus all my siblings are German and Irish and I'm the only Mexican and German one. Joe tried to see me multiple times but my mom avoided him, tried to abort me, and she made sure he wasn't on the birth certificate. I found out on Joe's side I have 2 half-sisters. When I finally found out I cried harder than ever cause I looked just like him. My half-sisters too. He died in 2014 of cancer. I never got to meet him. I feel robbed. When I asked my mom to be truthful about it on Christmas, she finally confessed after I told her I knew. My whole life I was lied to about my own father and I found out he died. I still feel anger for it, and when I asked why she just says she didn't know. I'll never get reasons for it. My half-sister talked to me as well saying they always knew, but my second oldest brother told them to keep quiet. My other half-sister passed away last year as well. I'm just venting even if this is a year old because I still feel robbed and I feel anger towards for my mother for it. It felt like I chased a ghost for a decade, and the worst part is I look so much like him. I look nothing like my mother, so now I question if she treated me badly because of it. Thanks for reading. Edit, fixed the affair mistake. My dad cheated on his wife at the time with my mom. Heck if it was long going or a one-time thing, and I don't know why everyone blocked him from seeing me or knowing about his existence. My family is known to hide things to make my mom look good. They also said it'd just hurt me more, but from what I know about Joe was that he was married, had 2 girls, had a drinking problem at one point, got lung cancer in 2014 and passed the same year. Also, I didn't have social media until I was 13. I tried at 12 looking for my dad on my older sister's account, but again, no results. My mom was leading me to dead ends on purpose. Let me analyze this story for you. This story is a slow-burning heartbreak, a portrait of identity obscured by family secrets, of a daughter forced to hunt for pieces of herself through lies, silence, and the shadows of a man she never got to meet. It is a story of betrayal, not in the loud explosive sense, but in the quiet, lingering way that seeps into every corner of one's life and reshapes their understanding of who they are and where they come from. At its core, the narrator's grief is not just about the loss of her father, it's about being denied him. It's about being deliberately misled for over a decade, sent chasing a ghost with a fake name, offered symbolic breadcrumbs like a children's book about a journey to meet a dad, only for those leads to go nowhere. This wasn't an accidental omission, it was a sustained erasure of truth. And it came not from strangers, but from the people who were supposed to protect her. Her anger, still sharp a year later, is not excessive, it's righteous. Because her pain was preventable. The loss of a parent always leaves a scar, but the wound is deeper when that loss is laced with the knowledge that someone else made the choice for you. Her mother's decision to hide Joe's identity wasn't just a denial of a name, it was a denial of roots, connection, heritage, and the chance for a relationship. The mother's motives remain murky, and perhaps forever unknowable. Whether they were rooted in shame, fear, control, or self-preservation, they resulted in a profound injustice, one that the narrator is now left to carry alone. The tragedy is layered. Her father, Joe, wanted to be in her life. He tried. He was kept away. He died without her ever knowing him. And when she finally pieces together the truth, it comes not through the honest confessions of family, but through a relative in prison, further underlining just how dysfunctional and dishonest her environment has been. Even then, she doesn't get the full story. Only fragments, some from a half-sister, some from whispers, and most hidden behind a veil of "it would hurt you more." But that lie only served the comfort of the adults, not the emotional safety of the child. The narrator's description of being the only one of Mexican descent among her siblings, of never having her own Father's Day, of questioning whether her mother's coldness stemmed from her resemblance to Joe, these are subtle, cutting ways that isolation shaped her development. She was not just left out, she was othered in her own family. There's an implication of scapegoating, of being treated as a living reminder of something shameful or painful, even though none of it was her fault. What makes this narrative even more devastating is the timing. Her discovery coincides with her own pregnancy, a moment when she is on the cusp of parenthood herself, craving answers and groundedness. She yearns not only for her father, but for something ancestral and secure to pass on. Instead, she finds absence. Her grief is not just for what she lost, but for what her child will never know. And yet, there is resilience in her voice. She's angry. She's hurt. But she's seeking truth, naming injustice, and breaking the silence that shaped her life. That's powerful. Her story becomes a reckoning not just with her family's past, but with the future she wants to build, one where secrets do not rot under the surface and where truth, even when painful, is offered as a form of love. This story is a reminder that silence, when used to shield others from the truth, often causes far more harm than honesty ever could. It shows how lies of omission can create generational fractures, how the denial of one's origins becomes a lifelong wound, and how the search for belonging, when stifled by secrecy, can turn into a form of emotional exile. Her pain is real. Her anger is justified. And her determination to voice it is the first step in reclaiming a story that was never hers to begin with, but is now, finally, being written in her own words. My child's grandparents are fighting me for custody. I was 17 when I gave birth to my daughter. I got pregnant by my then-boyfriend, who wanted nothing to do with being a dad. For half the pregnancy, I was planning on adoption and had already started the process with an agency. I hadn't picked a family yet, but I was actively looking. He told me to pick whoever I wanted, he trusted me but didn't want to be involved. My family supported the idea. I brought it up first, and they agreed it was the best path for my future. It's not that they didn't care about the baby, but my mom made it clear that I was their main concern. My boyfriend was supportive, but mostly because it meant he could avoid responsibility. When I was around 6.5 months pregnant, I caught him with another girl. I was heartbroken and realized I'd been making all these huge life decisions for him. I knew it was stupid to have unprotected sex, but I did because he convinced me. I kept the pregnancy because I loved him. I chose adoption because he didn't want a baby. But deep down, I didn't feel at peace with it, I was depressed and sick about it. Eventually, I admitted to myself that I wanted to keep my baby, not for him, but for me. That decision felt like a huge relief. Telling my parents was terrifying. They tried to talk me out of it, but eventually, especially with my dad's support, they got behind me. We made a plan for me to keep my baby and finish school. When I gave birth, my ex and his parents came to the hospital, but they didn't stay long. His parents literally wrote my parents a check and said their son had too much going for him to be tied down just because I changed my mind and wanted to play mommy. Then, nothing. For over a year, they never reached out, never asked about my daughter. Meanwhile, my family rearranged their entire lives to support us. They paid for everything, took care of her when I was in school, made sure I kept my grades up, stayed in sports and activities, they really helped me succeed while being a mom. One day, I randomly ran into his parents while I was out with my daughter. I expected them to ignore us, but they were all smiles, saying how cute she was and how much she looked like their son. I personally think she looks just like me, but whatever. A few days later, my ex texted me saying he wanted to see her. I was surprised but happy. I still had feelings for him and wanted him to want to be a dad. I brought her to his parents' house and stayed the whole time. They acted really sweet and seemed like they regretted how they had treated us. His mom told me she was just scared for her son and hoped I understood. My ex seemed awkward but did try to play with the baby a little. Over time, his parents offered to babysit occasionally. They said it wasn't fair for my family to do all the work and that they wanted to help. When I started college, I figured the extra support would be helpful. I still lived at home, had full custody, and was doing everything I could to balance being a mom and a student. But slowly, things changed. They started calling themselves co-parents, making comments like, "We know what's best," or "You're still just a kid." They'd refer to her as our baby in front of me and my parents. I brushed it off at first, trying not to start conflict. Then they tried setting the visitation schedule and coming up with excuses to keep her long, taking her on outings without my permission or knowledge so they wouldn't even be home when I went by to pick her up. Then came the criticism. They'd say her clothes were too small or not right for the weather even though they were totally fine. One time I didn't pack enough diapers for a short visit and they made a huge deal about it, calling me irresponsible. They'd complain I didn't send enough food, even though she was only there for a few hours. I started to feel like they were looking for things to use against me. And then came the bombshell: they hired a lawyer and filed for custody. Not visitation, full-on primary custody. They claim I'm too young and immature to be a fit parent. They argue their son is being cut out even though he hasn't made any effort legally or otherwise. They're using the fact that I let them be involved as proof that I'm dependent on them, and they're trying to present themselves as de facto parents. They even say that my parents are too involved and that my daughter is being raised by a committee instead of in a proper household. I'm still in school, working part-time, and living at home. But I'm her mom. I've been her only consistent parent. My parents help because that's what good families do, that's not neglect. It's terrifying to think that people with more money and influence could take her away just because I was a teen mom. I've hired a family law attorney, my parents are paying for it and helping me navigate everything, and we're fighting back. I have texts, messages, and people who can back me up. I've never been anything but her mother from day one. I never expected this. I let them in. I wanted my daughter to know her dad's side of the family. I thought we were coexisting peacefully. I don't understand why they would try to do this to me. I feel like I'm being punished for trying to give them a chance. Let me analyze this story for you. This story is a gripping, heartbreaking example of how generosity, vulnerability, and good faith can be weaponized, especially against young mothers. It is a cautionary tale about the power dynamics embedded in age, class, and perception and how quickly they can shift from supportive to predatory. At the emotional core of this story is a young woman who made a life-altering decision at a fragile age, to keep her baby despite overwhelming pressure to give her up. That decision required bravery, maturity, and emotional clarity, qualities that directly contradict the accusations now being made against her. Her choice wasn't rash or naive, it was deeply considered, built not on fantasy, but on love. And it's clear she has lived up to the responsibilities of motherhood, surrounded by a strong, supportive family system. The betrayal in this story is slow, deliberate, and insidious. The grandparents' initial abandonment, signified most grotesquely by writing a check to absolve their son of responsibility, is damning in itself. For a year, they were absent. And yet, their sudden re-entry wasn't motivated by remorse or reconnection, but rather a strategy: gain access, build trust, establish a pattern of involvement, and then seize control. Their legal maneuver isn't just a violation of trust, it's an attempt to rewrite history. They are trying to erase the narrative of absence and paint themselves as the saviors of a neglected child. By framing the narrator's young age and support network as evidence of unfitness, they weaponize her very efforts to be a good mom. They distort her support system into a liability, not a strength. This is gaslighting at an institutional level, supported by privilege and a presumption that wealth and stability trump love and lived responsibility. But what's perhaps most devastating is how the narrator's kindness and willingness to share her daughter, qualities rooted in maturity and empathy, are the very things being turned against her. She didn't keep her daughter hidden out of spite. She welcomed these people into her child's life, even after being burned by them once. And now she's being punished for believing that shared love wouldn't lead to a custody war. The grandparents' behavior reflects a toxic entitlement, often seen in cases where a young mother is perceived as lacking power or legitimacy. They believe that because they are older, wealthier, and connected to the child biologically, they should have ultimate control. But biology is not parenting. Biology did not show up in the middle of the night. Biology did not pay the bills, change the diapers, stay up late after school to study, or feel the loneliness and strength it takes to mother as a teenager. This case also highlights a dangerous societal bias, that young motherhood is inherently irresponsible, and that support from family disqualifies someone from being the real parent. This is a myth. Community-based parenting is not incompetence, it's resilience. Despite the betrayal and trauma, the narrator's voice remains clear, composed, and grounded in truth. She is not asking for pity. She is stating her reality and fighting for her daughter. She shows more stability and emotional intelligence than the very people questioning her ability. Her fear is valid. The legal system has a history of favoring those with money, age, and perceived normalcy. But her preparation, the texts, witnesses, and a legal team show she is not backing down. That, in itself, is proof of her fitness as a parent. This story is a warning about how privilege can mask predation, about how systems sometimes fail those who need protection most, and about how, in the face of all of that, love still endures. This young woman is not just a teen mom. She is a mother in the fullest sense of the word, protective, devoted, and fierce. And no one has the right to take that from her.